Hey everybody, this is Oliver Davis from Windworks Sailing. I'm here to talk to you about tomorrow's Snowbird race. Saturday morning, 8:30 is the boat call on the dock on Rally Cap, our Jeanneau 40.5, which is rated for racing. And it looks like it's going to be a good day with solid wind. We're going to focus, as always, on safety, and we're going to talk about a few things that will help us to be safe on a windy day like tomorrow is expected to be. But let's get an overview of what we're going to do in the morning. If everybody shows up around 8:30 or 9, that's fine. The boat's not going to leave the dock any earlier than 9 a.m. at the earliest. And what we're able to do in this little video is give you a little bit of a chat about what the first hour or two of sailing is like before the racing starts in earnest at 10:55 a.m., which is when the 5-minute gun goes off, giving us 5 minutes to go before we can cross the start line. We talked about this last time, and I think it's going to be even more important for a windy day like tomorrow might be. We'll leave the dock lines and the fenders tied to the boat until we're fully out of the marina. Reason we do that is if the engine suddenly conks out, there's a lot of things we can do. One of them is use the momentum that we've got to pull up to a dock. And we want to have our dock lines and fenders ready if we have to do that. It'll be a little bit of work taking the dock lines off the boat, untying them from the cleats and untying the fenders and putting them down below when we're out of the marina and more into the waves of the south breeze. But we'll try to turn not too much into the wind and to the west out into the rougher water before we do that. We're also going to think about putting a reef in the main, and as everybody knows, the time to reef is at the dock before you go out. Going out and finding out that you didn't need a reef in the main is a heck of a lot better than going out and wishing you had put a reef in on the main. We've got slab reefing on this main, like most boats. The difference between our system and some older boats is that we've got a single line reefing system. That means that nobody has to go forward to the mast and hook up the grommet at the front of the sail, pull it down and put it on a hook by the gooseneck. That's great because it means nobody needs to leave the safety of the cockpit. The advantage for reefing before we leave is that that single line system, when we put the reef in the dock, is going to hold both of those new bottom corners of the sail down firmly when the mainsail goes up. The old system, when you put the main up, that grommet might have fallen out of the tack hook and somebody has to go running up there while they're trying to raise the main. That's a bad situation, so I'm really glad we have the modern single line reefing system on Rally Cap. Probably leave the dock around 9 a.m. This would be us motoring out. It's probably going to be a south wind tomorrow. But I think we'll come out the south end of the marina and we'll put up the main. I'll probably ask all of you to go through some of the steps that we're going to need to do to put up the main. Not necessarily in any perfect order, but I just want to get those steps into our heads and memorized because in big wind, that's when it's easy to make mistakes, even though you've done something that you think is really easy and that you've done many times before. And I'll show you why raising the main is something we're going to want to have a little bit of practice with. As we head out, we'll head towards the starting line and get a sense of what the wind is doing. It's probably going to be from the south tomorrow. Should be a relatively strong wind, knock on wood, maybe as much as 20 knots. We will put up the main by pointing into the wind and raising the sail, and we'll go through the steps of that obviously in more detail on the boat. Once we've got the main up, we'll begin sailing. Probably we'll try to sail on nothing more downwind than a beam reach. because in strong wind especially, it's very easy to find the boat sailing on kind of a downwind angle, because the sound kind of gets quieter, the boat's rocking a little bit less, and you tend to sort of creep downwind a little bit and then find out that you've suddenly got the pretty difficult task of beating back upwind just to get to the starting area. So we're going to try to stay near the starting area and not go too far north of it. Once we've got the main up and we're sailing on a close reach, beam reach or so, we'll unfurl the jib. We might, since we've got a roller reefing jib, unroll the jib only to the first reef. So we've got a slightly small, slightly reefed jib. That's actually going to work well not only for reduced sail area for that jib, but also it's going to make the sheet lead, the angle that the jib sheet pulls on the sail, work a lot better, and you'll see what I mean when we do that. We'll sail close hauled. That's going to be one of the most important things to practice. It probably won't be right in the starting area when we do it, but it'll be really nice to get out there long before everybody else has, so we've got those waters to ourselves to practice. We'll basically practice sailing close hauled and tacking. Our tacks will always involve a 90-degree turn, so they'll always involve looking to the side of the boat to find something on shore that seems to be directly off of our side as a stopping target for our 90-degree turn. That won't be a perfect tack, but picking a target off to our side will help us not turn the boat too little or way too far. And that's also important on a strong wind day, is to have a method of making things easy. Once we've sailed for a while, and it gets to be about 10:40 or so, we're actually going to roll the jib back up, and then we're going to point into the wind, and we're going to drop that main down, and it's going to go very nicely into the main boom bag on the boom that we have, which is one thing that's great about the Jeanneaus. The reason we're going to do that is because around 10:35, 10:40, the race committee boat, which is this boat anchored right here, winds here coming from the south, the race committee boat is going to display the letters that represent the course that they want us to sail that day. And tomorrow's course could very much be a race from N. The race course letters will always start with N, because that's the N buoy right there. It's actually a white ball with an orange flag. So the first course letter we'll see will be N, and we might see a W, which means tack back and forth to get up to the West Point buoy, the green government buoy up there. Leave it on our right side, and then head downwind to R, which is Spring Beach. Maybe almost a third of the way or the quarter of the way to Edmonds on the east shore, a small white buoy on the east shore of Puget Sound. That's one possible course. They might make it a longer course. And the reason we want to drop our sails is we really want to be able to get that course. The letters that they hang from the side of their boat aren't that big. And we also want to be able to be right there at 10:55 a.m. when the 5-minute gun goes off and the 5-minute flag goes up, because that means there's 5 minutes to go to the start. And of course there's going to be a lot of other boats that are sailing near the committee boat at that same time to try to do those two things we're doing. Get the course, write it down, and be there so we can hear the 5-minute horn sound and see the flag go up, so we can start our 5-minute countdown watches. It will be really nice to just be motoring when we're trying to figure those things out versus trying to sail the boat while we're looking over at the committee boat to see what course they're displaying. So once we've got the course, we'll raise the main again by pointing into the wind, obviously. That will allow us to make it a repeat maneuver that we've already practiced, already talked about, and gone through the steps for. We won't be in a hurry. we'll take the main up. It'll take us a minute and a half, and hopefully we will figure out a tactic of crossing the start line just around the time, not before, time goes to 0. So 7 seconds left. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1 minute horn or 0 horn, and we go across the line. That would be a great start. And of course, it's nice to be crossing on the starting line on starboard tack, which is something that we've talked about and will talk about more. One of the greatest parts of the day is after the race and after the seamanship drills that we do after racing is hanging out at the dock and talking about some of the stuff that we did that day. So I do want to emphasize that we don't have a lot of people tomorrow, so we're going to be pretty conservative. It's going to take a little bit of time to figure out how to adjust the main sheet and the jib. So when we have to, we're going to tack. We're probably not going to do 100 tacks or chase another boat up the shore doing 100 tacks until we really feel comfortable maneuvering the boat in big wind. And of course, going out early is going to really help with that. Let us feel comfortable in the amount of wind that we have. The Jeanneau can handle this kind of wind extremely well, and we've got a bunch of really good sailors on the boat, so it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm definitely bringing 2 sets of rain gear, 2 sets of warm pile, extra socks, extra warm hat, because we could end up being pretty wet. And if you're wet and the wind is blowing, that's when the coldness and even hypothermia can set in. If that ever happens to somebody, they feel like they're too cold, boom, we go back to the dock, and that's the best day ever because we practiced what a smart sailor should do when one or more of the crew is having difficulty, which is you go in. Smart seamanship is really about being very conservative and very safe with your decisions. We'll spend the day racing. Could be a pretty quick race. They might, since it's good breeze, send us up to West Point and then across to the other side of the Sound to a buoy called Skiff Point. That one's hard to find, so if that course comes up, we're going to have a navigational challenge, and it'll be pretty exciting to figure out what course we have to sail to get to that buoy. It's roughly going to be directly west of the West Point buoy. After the racing, we will stay out on the water for a little while and do a couple of seamanship drills. Last time we hove to. We set the boat up where she's just sitting with the wind on the side of the boat, the main flapping, and the jib purposely backed and pulled over to the wrong side of the boat. A boat can actually sit like that as a storm tactic, and we were all pretty impressed when we did this during the last race or after the last race at how peaceful the boat felt even on a really rough windy day when we put ourselves into a hove to position. And since the main is mostly flapping when you're hove to, it's a great opportunity to put a reef in the main, or if the wind is getting lighter, to shake the reef out. So I'm really looking forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Let me just go through the start sequence really quick. When we get out there, we might see this repeater, which means that the race is postponed. That means they're probably not going to be able to start the race and blow the 5-minute gun at 10:55 a.m. But eventually this will come down, and the first flag that will go up along with the horn is our 5-minute flag, which is the 1 flag, the 1 pennant, because we're in Class 1 with 3 other non-flying sails boats. Scirocco, Frog Prince, and then you saw there was a 4th boat that actually entered late. This flag will go up at 5 minutes. That's where we're going to want to be right by the committee boat to see that flag go up, hear the horn, and start our 5-minute countdown watches. At 4 minutes to go, the prep flag goes up. So at 4 minutes, This flag will go up, and from 4 minutes to 1 minute, you'll see these two flags flying on the committee boat. If you look over at the committee boat and you see these two flags, that means the 4-minute time is definitely passed, and we're probably coming up on the 1-minute horn. At the 1-minute horn, the prep flag, flag P, comes down. So if you know it's pretty close to your start and you look over and you can see just your class flag up, you know you're within that final minute before you can cross the start line. And when time 0 comes, the class flag for our class, class 0, will actually be replaced with the flag for class 2. Our number 1 flag will come down at the same time as their number 2 flag goes up. And hopefully at that very moment, we're just inches away from nosing across the starting line with a really good start with great speed and the start of a fun day. So I'm looking forward to seeing all of you tomorrow.